Today is Saturday, September 11th, 2021, 20th commemoration of 9/11. Terrible, horrible what happened. Let's pray for all the families. Let's pray for this entire world to bring about peace and love. One race, human race, all human.
And all the Democrats in the Senate and the House, with the exception of Barbara Lee, voted in favor of the invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I do remember that. In fact, for 2 or 3 years, they kept supporting the war in Iraq. When I ran in the Democratic primary for president, I was one of maybe 2 or 3 candidates out of 9 that was against the war as late as 2004. But picking up from the last question, Michael, could you draw a line from 9/11 to January 6th? Because I saw you tweeted after Afghanistan's fall last month, quote, I'm quoting you, they're Taliban, our Taliban, everybody's got a Taliban. They're at their best when they confiscate the halls of power. I thought about the language of that statement because according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, you had a continuous increase in the number of organized hate groups every year after the 9/11 attacks, a number that appeared to peak under President Obama's first term, dipping under his second, before, of course, spiking under President Trump. Do you think the insurrection happens without some of the cultural forces that were unleashed 20 years ago?
No, there's a direct line between the two. Race is always the factor. I mean, just think about this. Since the Germans were defeated in May of 1945, I think every single war, with the exception of maybe the Serbian war that we were involved in, which the old Yugoslavia had many Muslim citizens, every war has been against people of color, whether it was Korea, whether it was Vietnam, whether it was the Gulf War, the Iraq War. We don't drop bombs on white people anymore. And this thing, there was an excellent piece of Frontline on PBS this week where they very bravely drew the connection between a generation that grew up knowing that Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld had lied about the reasons to take us to Iraq, and that so many people after that war, so many National Guard people that were sent over there, they signed up for the National Guard to put out forest fires. They were sent over there to die. And they came back, a lot of them, those who survived, came back with a hatred of the U.S. government. And a lot of Americans started then not trusting whatever the government is telling us. Don't believe them. And they drew the line on Frontline this week to Bush essentially generating this lack of trust and believing the government is lying, to how easy it was to get so many people to believe that Joe Biden didn't win the election, that Trump won, Trump's still their president, and that we have 80 million Americans who still haven't gotten vaccinated because they believe Bill Gates has put a chip inside the vaccine and he's going to track us. The madness of this belief in the unreal and the untrue began back then, after 9/11. The day after 9/11, on 9/12, Bush had not met in his whole first 8 months his head of counterterrorism, Richard Clark. Finally, Clark gets a meeting the day after 9/11, and Bush doesn't want to talk about anything but Iraq. He testified that's all they wanted to talk about, invading Iraq. Iraq didn't invade us. Clark tries to tell them. They didn't want to hear it. They wanted to go after Saddam Hussein. Everything that we witnessed during that time with Bush and Cheney, that was the beginning of this, and that has led us, to January 6th. That has led us to this awful division, this sort of, hopefully so far, cold civil war between each other. But we're not going to make it as Americans if we keep this fight going with each other. We can have our disagreements, but that's not what's been happening now. Now it's turned violent, and the violence is encouraged by the former guy who held office for the last 4 years. And now we've got a president trying to get us vaccinated, trying to save our lives, and trying to stand up against all the lies that are being told. And when he said that this week, $300 million a day, Al, $300 million a day is what we spent for 20 years on this war. What would our cities look like today if we had that $300 million a day
Absolutely.
for 20 years? What would our children have? What would our healthcare system look like? I just go down the list. And this is what I meant by essentially Bin Laden ended up winning because we've destroyed ourselves. We've destroyed our social safety net. We've taken away our constitutional rights.
We're
and
moving away from our constitutional rights. I'm going to have to leave it there. Always great.
No, sorry I went on so long.
Michael Moore, we thank you, as always, for your time.
Thank you, Bill.
Up next, my final thoughts. Stay with us.